Grave challenge which affects many countries around the world. It hinders government's progress in duly collecting tax revenue as this illicit transaction results in overall reduced government income. To deliberate more on this issue, I'm joined in studio by an expert from Rankuke Training Institute, Mr. George Kilu. Good morning, Mr. Kilu. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right.
Grateful to be here.
Thank you. Let's unpack the issue of money laundering. What constitutes money laundering? Just take us through the nitty-gritties of what it is exactly.
I think the best way to start off this is probably for me to get you to the law first.
Right.
And of course, I know law is a little bit of a very dicey issue, especially for the ordinary person.
Right.
So I'll try and make it very simple.
Right.
And with your permission, I'll actually just read from... we have two acts that really talk to.
Okay.
The first act that deals with money laundering is the Financial Intelligence Act. Mm-hmm. And the Financial Intelligence Act, it doesn't really define what money laundering is.
Right.
It says money laundering is as defined by the Proceeds and Instrument of Crime Act.
Wow. Okay.
Now, so that then means we need to understand what does the proceeds or the PICA, I like calling it PICA in short,
right.
What does it say? And it also doesn't really go out and say money laundering is, but it does give, and if you permit, I'll actually read through what it says. This is under Section 47 of the PICA Act. It says, a person that is in the case of money laundering, this is now how you're treated to have an offense in money laundering, is a person who engages, so you're involved in a transaction. Any transaction is anything involving money, or that involves property which is or in part directly or indirectly represents the proceeds of any crime. There are very key words that I need people to understand here. First is that you will have to engage in that activity. Right. So a transaction is an activity. Okay? And then the second one is that it will involve property. Here, when we say property, it's not just money. It's not physical.
Right.
It involves anything, I would say anything that is of value.
Okay.
Okay? And then it says, and this is where a lot of people get lost in and they get caught in, directly or indirectly represents the proceeds of any crime. And here is important. And I want to explain it this way. I, George, am involved in bank robbery. That's a crime.
Right.
Okay? And when I rob banks, I make money. Correct. And in a lot of cases, you will find that I don't want to use this money myself directly because I'm known, or people will understand that I robbed a bank.
Right.
So what do? I come to you. You're a good friend of mine. Okay? And I know you work in BTV. So I have money.
Right.
You have genuine money, remember, because you're paid by BTV.
Right.
And I'll tell you, my friend, listen, I have money I'm expecting, but I don't have it right now. And there's a car I need to buy. Would you assist me to get the car now because I may lose it?
Right.
And because we're friends, or you think we're friends, you go to your bank and transfer money to the car dealer and pay for the money, for the car. So when the police are tracking, that car was bought by yourself from money coming from a bank. Okay? Now, this is where the indirect aspect comes. I then get the money that I had robbed the bank, and I give it to you.
Wow.
I am paying you back your money. So you will say, George paid me back. And George paid me money. What have you done? You have involved yourself in money laundering.
Wow.
Now, from that, can I explain then what that means?
Right.
Money laundering is the process of converting illegal proceeds or money from crime
Right.
into a genuine value. So I stole money, I used you
Right.
to convert, and once I've bought that car, it's my car now, is it? So what do? I didn't need the car. No. A few days later, I sell the car. Okay?
Right.
Once I sell the car, whoever pays for the car, I make sure they will deposit that money directly into my bank.
Wow.
So I've converted
Wow.
proceeds of crime through you into my bank account. So when I get that money from my bank and start using it, everybody knows that that money came through my bank.
Right.
Okay, we'll talk about KYC
Yes.
later, but the KYC things are all sorted
Right.
out.
Yeah.
So that's now where the indirect aspect of money laundering. So when the police are investigating, it's not me only to go down the drain. You are a culprit.
So, obviously, this brings me to this point now. A lot of people can unknowingly find themselves, obviously implicated in what initially was just, a transaction between friends or somebody that they trust. That is what happens.
True. And this is why I'm saying, this is why we all think that KYC is done by banks and other organizations and everything.
Right.
But let's understand, what is KYC? It's an acronym for Know Your Customer.
Right.
In our case, I'll say Know Your Friend. KYF.
Wow. Wow.
What does that mean? What it means is this. You need to know what I do. You need to know how I make my money. You need to look at the money that I am transacting in and ask yourself, what I do, can it generate that money? If it cannot generate that money,
Right.
keep away from me.
Should be suspicious.
The right word.
Right. And we'll get to that in a bit.
I didn't want to use that word.
We'll get to the part of KYC or KYF, however we term it. Let's talk about just how serious this issue, money laundering, is in the context of Botswana and, of course, the global village. But let's bring it home a bit.
It's a serious issue worldwide.
Right.
It's a serious issue locally.
Right.
Why? I've said what is money laundering. I've explained what money laundering is. And we've seen that money laundering has an aspect of crime.
Right.
So, if we stop money laundering, we are likely to stop crime. That's the nexus. Because bank robbers will have nowhere to use the money that they robbed the bank. So if you can't use money that you've robbed a bank with, then it's useless. You will not engage in it.
Right.
That's the seriousness. And what is the impact? Again, you see, when we get involved in criminal activities, we weaken our government.
Right. Right.
Criminals don't pay taxes.
They don't.
If they don't pay taxes, the government has no money. If the government has no money, it can then be controlled by people with money.
Wow. Wow.
And when that comes into play, then we will be a failed state.
Oh, wow. So let's talk about the trends. You gave a case study, a typical example of, something very simple and seemingly ordinary, and that could happen to anyone. What are the other common trends, if you could just, name them and shame them, of course?
Well, there are quite a variety, if I could say that.
Right.
I've just given the example of bank robber. And the most common, and I think we have a case that is just being adjudicated, or a decision will be made very soon.
Right.
Where business people or executives or ordinary people working in offices, government employees,
Right.
senior or junior, will engage in methods that are contrary to the law. And they will earn proceeds out of it. And when they earn proceeds out of that, they will find a way to bring that money and make it legal. So these are the things that are really, and it's not, again, you can see, you will also find organizations. For example, a company like Rankuke.
Right.
You will find that we're doing very well. And you start your own company like us, and every time you wonder, why is it that we seem to be doing well? You're doing the same business.
Right.
You're playing by the book. You have all the consultants. In fact, you've gone to Layer, for example. Sorry, it's fine. I hope it's not wrong to use Layer as an example. They've actually taught you
Right.
all the business skills.
Right.
You are applying them, but your business isn't doing well. But a similar business is doing very well. You've got to do your research well. Because there is what I call cost of doing business. Someone who is involved in money laundering does not care how much they spend to turn their illegal acquired funds to become legal acquired funds.
They do it at any cost.
And I'll ask you this.
Right.
If I steal $1 million from a bank and I spend $500,000 to ensure that I have converted this other $500,000 into clean money,
Right.
have I lost anything?
No.
I didn't have anything in the
You
first
had
place.
nothing,
But
yeah.
now I have $500,000
Right.
genuine money. That is what is driving money laundering.
So what are countries doing, or what should countries do in the wake of all these emerging trends in this illicit activity?
And the laws are changing.
Right.
And if you realize, in our case, I think Botswana has been hard hit from 2000, I think sometimes 3, 4 years ago. We were put on what we call the sanction list, or grey listed.
Grey listing, yeah.
Grey listed. Now, I'll explain what that means, but what was now required, or what it means, is that we were poorly ready in terms of laws,
Right.
in terms of procedures, in terms of being effective, our effectiveness, the police and all other agencies that are supposed to deal with issues relating to money laundering. We were not doing enough. Either our laws were weak, or where the laws were not weak, we were not implementing them. Or we had laws that were talking to one part,
Right.
but on the other, they were not communicating. Let me say,
Yeah.
a silo type of laws. So what countries need to do, like Botswana, and that's what Botswana has done, and
Right.
let's give kudos to the government,
Right.
because Parliament has really enacted, unamended, quite a lot of laws. The government has resourced a number of institutions, including the DPP, the DCC, the police, the judiciary,
Right.
in order to ensure that they can deal effectively with matters relating to money laundering. And I think we are starting to see the fruits. I
Okay.
could say that.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's backtrack a bit to what you talked about earlier in terms of, detecting or identifying instances of money laundering. You mentioned the KYC and how obviously you deemed it KYF now for you to actually know the people that you work with, the people that you do transactions with. How do you go about that? Do we go about now doing background checks of everyone that we come across? How do you go about it with obviously staying safe and also making sure that you also keep relationships as well?
Let's start from an individual.
Right.
Me and you.
Right.
We've met. We've become friends. We've exchanged numbers. You tell me what you do. I shouldn't just accept it from face value. keyword, I must be in a position to verify. What you're telling me, that you work with BTV, is it true?
Right.
If you say so, I would need to call you or visit you at BTV.
Right.
To ensure that you actually work in BTV. You know, we think that that is being nosy. But remember, the law says you may be involved indirectly.
Right.
So if you're my friend, and I always believed that you work with BTV, but in essence, you passed through BTV and did an interview with your friends. And then at the end of the day, you are actually involved in criminal activities. It becomes easy for me for you to use me as a getaway.
Right.
To convert your illegal funds. That's why it is very critical. And I have seen a lot of Botswana and also Nancyism. I say Botswana because we are in Botswana.
Right.
And I think this is our country, so that's how we should refer it as. Where we're very easygoing to people who seem to have money.
Right.
As long as we are able to meet, we can go outing, dating, they can pay the bills. We don't ask questions. What I'm cautioning Botswana is that sooner or later, you may find yourself standing in a court of law to answer to charges of money laundering. And that's now from what I said from your question was, make sure you verify.
Right.
What you are told, make sure you verify independently.
Right.
That's a very key word, independently. So that you can confirm to yourself what you're being told is the truth. When it comes to organizations, and this is where we have the KYC, my greatest problem with a lot of entities is that they are doing it for compliance. You know what we mean by compliance? It's just where you're doing something to show the people in authority that you're actually following what it is. The essence of KYC is to, and this, I'm now talking to staff who work in organizations. If you're responsible for KYC, it is not for you to comply, to say that I got an ID, I got this from this one, I got this one from this one, therefore all things are fine. No, no, no. The purpose of KYC is to ensure that you know who is this person, or are they the people they are claiming to be.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So now on a bigger scale, let's talk about just how money laundering affects the financial sector, like just the gravity of how it affects the financial sector.
Okay. Again, I'll default to what is money laundering?
Right.
Criminal funds coming through into the normal system. The financial sector thrives when there is economic activities. See, like now, when I come to BTV, for example, and I do a show here, and if, let's say, where BTV pays for certain shows, I generate revenue, okay? So when I generate that revenue, there's an economic activity that has taken place. From that perspective, then I can go and perform other functions. I can pay my bills, I can go, so it goes, so that money multiplies in a genuine way. But when now it comes to money laundering, we're getting illegal money coming into the system, the banking system or the financial sector, and this money is not out of any economic activity. So what are other things that it can come with? Inflation. If it creates inflation, we know the rising prices, and therefore likely at the end of the day the economy may come down, tumbling.
We have like under 3 minutes to wrap up this conversation. So let's now end with, having been, rather being an expert in the industry, and of course you have a wealth of knowledge with regards to, how the dynamics work within this space. Are we doing enough as Botswana? You did mention, obviously, the milestones in terms of, the efforts the government is doing. So in your thoughts, where can we improve and how much more can we do on top of what we're already doing as government?
We have done a great length.
Right.
Can we do better? Of course, we can do much, much, much better. We can streamline a lot of our functions. One of the key things I probably would address government into is thinking about bringing in private investigators into the country.
Right.
Passing a bill where forensic investigators can be able to practice, and government can then cede some of its services that are done by the police, because we understand the police is overwhelmed,
right.
And that is why they are not able to do some of this money laundering, especially the low-level money laundering cases. So if they were to cede some of this to private investigators,
right.
then that would be a plus. It's a one way of ensuring that we're doing much better. Of course, I'm alive to the fact that government is also busy coordinating all the agencies. Training and awareness creation,
right.
is one of the greatest deterrents on any crime related. Because once we know that something is wrong, we are likely to get away. And Botswana are very nice, very good people, especially when it comes to running away from crime.
Right.
Very nice fellas. Yeah, my experience of many years in this country
right.
tells me that.
Okay.
Yeah.
George, thank you very much for sharing your insights and, of course, your expertise on this issue. Thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot.
All right. And of course, that was Mr. George Kiilu, who's obviously an expert from Rankuge Training Institute, giving us insights on money laundering. This is how we end this conversation.